We have patch 28, July 7th update. There's multiple highlights in here that I'm excited about, but just to list them off, we have Steel Rain, Legendary Crafting, the new Season 5 Scoreboard, wallet upgrades, and Minerva. Definitely a lot to look forward to. And I'm definitely going to break down some of what I'm interested in. Right from the beginning, I'm going to say this update seems like a lot of buffs and quality of life. Anything that was kind of tweaked, I would say makes sense when we get to the numbers a little later. But they also added a good amount of content that we'll be able to jump into, whether it's legendary crafting, the quest lines, or even more events that we'll be looking forward to. But going on to Steel Rain, I personally waited to do Steel Dawn. I wanted to do Steel Dawn straight into Steel Rain without having to wait for a new update to come out. So I personally held off on that. Soon I'll be checking that out, but I should say I am familiar with some of what's in the quest line after watching some other content creators, so it's exciting to start my own kind of playthrough on that and see how I go about it. I will definitely try not to be as quick to be angry at any character and see how neutral I can be while playing that. I'll just say that. And then again, once you're completing these kind of quests, you're going to be getting kind of more exclusive things. You're going to be awarded with brand new items as they're listing, so you'll have your chance to get some goodies. On to legendary crafting. And this is one of the biggest ones that I'm going to be experimenting with long term. I think this is going to change a lot of how I personally approach my day-to-day gameplay on the game. Cores are going to be a big part of this. The fact that we have the wallet increase that I'll get into later helps out a ton and kind of helps me, let's say, maintain something like purveyor roles and legendary crafting system. I will say that I'm also happy that I spent time to collect a good amount of legendary modules between a few characters. So once I know exactly what I want to roll, I'll be able to hopefully get a few attempts on certain items. And then worst case scenario, I did save these modules on other characters. So if it happens to other characters, get legendary cores on them. I can also have some additional attempts to get what I'm looking for. But that's going to be a lot of RNG. But going back to legendary cores, it's not just legendary cores that we're going to need. It's these legendary modules that we're going to have an opportunity to get within seasonal events, public events, and daily ops. We're going to be doing definitely a lot more sheep events, the encrypted. That's going to be a great source of them. Even us doing some other events, Scorch Beast Queen, Earls, things like that, hopefully will be feasible depending on how many cores we're trying to get per day or our method of getting them. With these cores, and again, the addition to legendary modules, you'll have the ability to craft 1, 2, and 3-star legendary upgrades. And now, changing out our gear for these 1, 2, and 3 stars, it's all going to be tier-based. They're saying it depends on the tier of legendary upgrades. And now that's also going to be upgrading, downgrading, and re-rolling. And then for anybody that hasn't found out about this prior, upgrading, you can go from a 1 to a 3-star if you have that 3-star upgrade. The same thing if you had a 2, you can go from a 1 to a 2. Downgrading, if you had a 3-star and you want to make it a 1 or 2-star, you could use whatever tier of that upgrade. And then re-rolling, which is what we're going to be looking to do, is changing out 3-stars for additional 3-stars. I have mentioned I've been hanging on to things like Teslas just for the sake of trying to re-roll them. Even if it's a 1-star quad Tesla, I'd be pretty happy. But if I have some 2-stars, I can try rolling them for 3. I can try rolling them for 1, as that is one example. But things like fixers, even 1-star fixers that I may have hung on to, that's going to be an upgrade. If it's a 2-star fixer, that's an upgrade. If it's a 3-star, it's just a fancy way of saying, okay, you got your reroll. Onto legendary power armor, so very similar to what I'm just mentioning. Like weapons and armor, legendary power armor pieces can now be upgraded, downgraded, and re-rolled. And they're also mentioning the vast majority of legendary attributes that are available to normal armor can also be applied to power armor, and they mentioned some exceptions. I'm going to call off a couple of exceptions that to me made sense. Reduced fall damage. I mean, you already don't have fall damage, so that would make sense to have. Grants underwater breathing, divers, again, similar critique. Unyielding, I didn't expect unyielding to be on power armor. I would imagine that would be way too OP for certain builds. Imagine having all pieces of power armor as unyielding and having the additional resistances to radiation and, let's say, higher defense and whatnot. That's kind of interesting. Weightless, I guess that kind of makes sense too. You're putting these pieces on your power armor chassis, so it's not like they're really weighing anything. It would only make sense if you were carrying them, but then again, why would you want to hang on to just random pieces like that? But hey, maybe it becomes a new meta of swapping different pieces out. In any case, we have a few others that are listed, but I would definitely recommend checking out the post. I will have that provided on all of today's patch notes here. They have also some legendary balance changes to existing items. Now, going back, I would say there's a lot of buffs. The way I'm looking at it, it seems like they're really introducing new ways to play in innovative ways and also make more builds feasible as opposed to only having so many players and a certain percentage using. I mean, I hate to always go for bloodied, but I feel like a huge chunk of players probably have at one point or another played unyielding or played bloodied, and then that's a conversation, I guess, for another time. But going away from things like that, they have 1-star, 2-star, and 3-star legendary weapon attributes that they've implemented. One that I'm kind of interested in, aristocrats. Damage increases as caps increase, and then maximum of 50% damage at 29,000 caps. So it's good because it's not going to mean that you need to be full on your caps. We'll talk about wallet upgrades soon, but having 40,000 caps as a maximum and 29,000 to just, do this maximum amount of damage, you could still comfortably have 10 to 11,000 caps of wiggle room, so you also don't have to be worried about going over cap if you're selling something, that kind of deal. Juggernaut, very interested in Juggernaut. It's an interesting way to look at playing more as vanguards, full health, maybe instead of junkies. You don't have to take certain penalties with, let's say, the chem addictions, but damage increases as health increases. Maximum 25% damage at 95% health or above. I think this also makes things like auto stim, whether it's the perk or say the armor itself, a little bit more feasible. They have what? Gourmands. Damage increase as you fill your hunger and thirst meters, maximum of 24% damage. I'm not sure why they didn't do 25 as just kind of like more of consistent number. So now that we have survival syringes, most of the time I'm keeping my character fully stocked on food, the hunger, and the thirst meter. And at that point, it's helping me also keep like my buffs going and giving me a little bit extra carry weight and other things too. So maybe some weapon like this could also be pretty feasible. 2-star. We have a couple here. Pretty interested in some of these depending on how I utilize certain characters. We have Last Shot. The final round in a magazine has 25% chance to deal twice as much damage. So something like that I'm intrigued about. It can't be something like a black powder weapon, so keep that in mind. So now we have this steady legendary weapon attribute here that I'm very interested in. You'll have 25% damage increase while basically standing still. So that's a good thing to combine with Sentinel. I run mostly Sentinel on as many items as I can. So now using something like this, having an additional damage increase. A lot of these damage increases are going to 25% we're looking at. So that's a pretty good way to get more items and see how they can be feasible in multiple situations. We also have Inertial, 15 AP with each kill. Kind of reminds me of Grim Reaper Sprint in its own way. But now, kind of over here as a legendary weapon attribute. We have 3 stars. We have Ghosts. Attacks have a 10% chance to generate a stealth field. So something like cloaking now on a weapon and adding that to the combination of somebody's gear, loadout, or whatever's going on, I think could be interesting compared to some of the other legendary attributes we get on these items. So again, there's going to be a lot of RNG trying to see what we can come up with. A new legendary armor and power armor attributes. So this one's pretty interesting. So for 1 star, I think this also sounds like Mutant's gear, and not Mutant Slayer's gear, but the Mutant's variant. Energy and damage resistances increases as caps increase. So now, maximum of 20 for each resistance at 29k. So now you could basically say you're an aristocrat build. You could be using the armor for it, and you could also be using a weapon for it. And you don't have to be full health, low health. You could be anything at that point. And at the same time, if you still want to be bloodied to take advantage, and I'd say bloodied, but lower health to be taking advantage of nerd rage, things like that, maybe mix that in. And as long as you have over 29k caps, you're getting resistance in the armor, or you're getting damage in the weapon. We have overeaters. And again, going back to survival syringe, I think somebody that's keeping up with using their survival syringe, keeping their character fed and whatnot, increases damage reduction up to plus 6% as you fill your hunger and thirst meters. So again, if you have a full set of that, start looking at how much can you really reduce damage compared to like having all sentinels or so. So again, I'm going to try to see what we can combine as we roll some of these items. And now if we can also put these on power armor, people are going to be able to take advantage of that as well, and then see how much tankier they can make their character with something like this. 2 star, we have Gluttons. Hunger and thirst grow 10% slower. This effect stacks up to a maximum of 50%. There's a couple of these that I'm not too crazy about. I would say I am interested in Fireproof, 25 fire resistance. I think you might run into a situation where that might help you more so than, let's say, warming up, 25 cryo resistance. But then again, depending on what some of these daily ops and other events evolve into, maybe we're actually going to want some more of these resistances as opposed to brushing them off. And then we have another one that I thought was a pretty interesting alternative to using dense mods on your armor, Hardy. Receive 10% less damage from explosions. So now being able to have that as part of your, gear set as opposed to modding it out could be valuable. You get that, let's say, instead of dense, you get that back, maybe put AP refresh, I don't know, something like that. 3 star, we have Doctors, Burning, Electrified, Frozen, Toxic, and Dissipating. So Doctors, we have the ability to have stims, Radaway, Radex be more effective, 5% more effective. Then we have a few that are pretty similar in terms of melee attacks. We have, actually, for melee attackers, Burning, Electrified, Frozen, and Toxic are all going to deal those types of damage to melee attackers, each of them being 100. So depending on what, let's say, mobs are going after, you're also going to have different effectiveness against them. So that could be a pretty good combo depending on which ones you end up with. And then there's also dissipating. Slowly regenerate radiation damage when out of combat. So now, again, going away from using something like Bloodied. I think if you combine something like this with Vanguard and even the Juggernaut skill, which again, going back to that, damage increases as health increases. So now if you can start combining some of these, and then just always keep your character topped off, you don't have to worry about radiation. There's also legendary perks that you can combine with that. Maybe it's possible to really go into a nuke zone or something like that if you have a lot of these perks maxed out and if you don't need power armor, if you can get the right chems, maybe you have some radiation reduction on armor. So these are things that I'm interested in testing out. And kind of going back to the idea of a lot of these attributes are making more builds feasible. And now I think there's a lot more options, let's say, on the table for people to experiment with. And then we don't have just the addition of various attributes. We have buffs, as far as I can call them. There's really only one, I think, that got nerfed briefly, we'll call it. But certain things like, I'll mention the clusters of them, but Assassins is going from 10% damage to 50% damage versus humans. I'm pretty sure I have like a less VATS AP explosive. Is it Blood? No, it's Assassins. Sorry. So Assassins less VATS explosive handmade, and now if I'm going to be fighting more mobs, let's say specifically during daily ops or some of these events, maybe I might want to start using this. Maybe that could be more feasible. I'm not going to get into the whole PvP scenario because obviously that should melt people more. But again, curious to know if maybe one day we'll have something like, dare I say, survival back for people to actually take advantage of this. Because I find it interesting that it's versus humans, but I don't see a lot of people using specific weapons towards, say, humanoids in the game. But maybe if they had more of a playground to use some of these weapons in PvP, hey, I don't know, maybe that would make it more valuable. Talking about clusters, though, the other numbers didn't go from 10%, they went from 30%. Exterminators, Ghoul Slayers, Hunters, Mutant Slayers, Zealots as well, all got buffs, and Troubleshooters all got buffs. They went from 30% to 50%. So now all those attributes that are for specific mobs, you're going to be doing even more damage. Again, making more things feasible. I am all about buffing up instead of nerfing down. There's something that seems to be used by a lot of players, per se. Let's try to make other things more feasible and buff them as opposed to doing any further nerfs. And this seems to be the route that they're taking with feedback and I guess what they're observing in the game. Going back to Berserkers, this one's interesting. They removed the damage debuff when damage resistance is 80 or higher. And it says the damage buff when damage resistance is between 1 and 60 has been slightly reduced. So now I think on my Berserker's character, was probably running 38 physical damage, because you can have whatever for your energy damage, but I think it was only the physical that was affecting it. Well, now, I was within that range, and now that's going to tell me that if the damage buff when damage resistance is between those numbers has been slightly reduced, so that means that's kind of a nerf. I'm going to be doing slightly less damage. We'll see if it's a big difference. I would say Berserkers weapons, and things like that could be pretty interesting when you're treating it almost like junkies, because it doesn't do exactly bloodied damage. And I will admit, my Berserker's character runs around with low health too, so again, taking advantage of things like Nerd Rage. Getting it close, or as close as possible to doing bloodied numbers. So that's still a buff in its own way, because they're making it where the debuff is being removed again when it's at 80 or higher. So keep an eye on that and see how much my Berserker's character was impacted. A big one, though, I think, going back to mutants, as I was mentioning before, they're saying updated functionality. So instead of those numbers and raw numbers that we're looking at per piece, we're looking at the 5% per mutation, and that affects the characters up to a maximum of 25%. So now you can have whatever many mutations, as long as you have the right amount, 5 plus, you're going to get 25%, let's say, damage. So curious to see how that's going to scale. Mutant Slayers, again, that was clustered in with the other ones. And then the last two we have here is Nocturnal. Actually, though, there's a couple more here. But Nocturnal removed daytime debuff, and then the nighttime buff was increased. I want to say I have a Nocturnal Explosive, faster reload, black powder rifle, something like that. Just to test it out and see if it's worth using something like that. I think I also have a couple other Nocturnal items. So I'll do my own testing. I still don't see myself hanging on to certain weapons just for nighttime use. Again, makes more items actually feasible as opposed to end up in my auto script pile. And then suppressors also got a buff. Originally it was 20% of a debuff, let's say, for 3 seconds, and now it's 25% for 5 seconds. So anybody that's been playing something like Diablo 3 and building up a character and noticing small percentages here and there, that can make a big difference, especially in something like group play. Somebody has to like reload even during your time of reloading or switching to some other target. If you're fighting something like the Scorchbeast Queen or other creatures that might have a higher health pool or hit harder, I think suppressors could be feasible. If you want to swap between weapons, hit it a couple times. I don't know. I'm very for the idea of looking at all of these new changes and perks and even things that have been added to not necessarily lock myself into too many builds, but then experiment a little more. Now onto 2-star. There is Bashers. So now the bash damage is going from 40% to 50%. I think in one of my recent videos, what was it? Ghoul Slayer's bash minigun. I've been instructed to add the right mods so I can go through and shred some ghouls. But if it's also going as a 10% buff, maybe I'll do even that much more damage. We'll be seeing that soon. Hitman's increased damage while aiming from 10% to 25%, so that's nice. More than doubled that. Things like Gatling weapons and heavy weapons, I think we'll probably notice pretty fair increase in that regard. I don't think I have too many weapons with aim damage in terms of rifles. I think most of them are heavy weapons. Then enhanced VATs, we're going from 33% to 50%. So now, again, a lot of these are buffs we're looking at. Kind of shocked that we're getting as many things added and buffs as opposed to anything really being hit. I mean, Berserkers is the only thing I'm seeing that's getting a nerf. And that's saying something, I guess. And then going on to legendary armor attribute changes for 1-stars. Assassins now reduces damage taken by all humans by 15%. And Nocturnal removed daytime debuff. Damage and energy resistances now increase by 10% per piece of Nocturnal during the nighttime. So now these resistances as a percentage as opposed to just some sort of just seeing the numbers, I should say, and then kind of calculating that. Not really sure if I'm gonna want to use something like Nocturnals, but at some point we'll add that to the list of things we're experimenting with. Now that basically wraps it up for those legendary attributes and things that have been changed, buffed, and added. We're now going on to the scoreboard. We have Season 5, 80 Inkwell in Escape from the 42nd Century. And I think the premise to this is wild. I don't know who's coming up with these, but please, by all means, keep the craziness going. We have Katie Inkwell is back in an all-new adventure. This time, we join our heroine on a thrilling adventure to the 42nd century. I feel like I need to be saying this in some sort of announcer voice. Uh, After a calibration malfunction, Katie Inkwell is thrust into a dystopian possible future. No, we're not doing that. Inhabited by dolphin-human hybrids. All right, there we go. Dolphin-human hybrids, you heard me. Uh, Wild. I don't know who's smoking what, but keep on doing whatever. Called the Mind Organization, these nefarious nautical beings have only one goal in mind: convert the last remnants of humanity into their soulless collective. Can Katie escape this wild world? Wild is definitely the word to use. Or will she find herself forced to join the masses of dolphin-human hybrids herself? So I'm very interested in this. Definitely kind of going out there. And then looking at the season ahead, we do have some maybe alien encounters on the road. I don't think they'll be dolphin related, but the wilder we get, the more I'm into it. The less we're locked into any sort of lore, the better. So I think these seasons make a pretty good outlet to experiment and not be so, again, trapped into specifically the lore of the Fallout series. And then again, we are looking at some new things. We're going to be looking at also similar types of rewards, but for this season we have legendary cores, power armor displays, and a red rocket collectron to look forward to. And of course, I'm sure they'll be surprising us with a little bit more down the road. And then we heard about this towards the end of last season. We're going to be looking at unlimited rank ups. So now, in addition to the 100 ranks that we're going to be able to earn, we can go beyond that. And I'm very happy that they specified and made it pretty clear in game when it comes to looking at once you hit rank 100, you're not going to be able to just do the repeatable XP challenge. But when you do hit past rank 100, we're looking at things like perk card packs, legendary crafting components, consumables, in-game items, atoms, and more. We're only going to have so much time to complete these, let's say, ranks. If we're able to hit rank 100 quickly and then continue to pass, or I should say push forward towards the next season, I don't see us being able to do a whole lot just as running quick numbers. If we're getting atoms, we're not going to be getting atoms every 5 levels. At least I don't think. For all I know, we're going to be getting maybe these that they're mentioning. They're mentioning, what, 5, 6 different things that we can get and more. So maybe every 10th level up, maybe you get 50 atoms. I don't know if we're going to be able to hit a theoretical rank 200 to, get 500 atoms, $5 worth, something like that. So kind of what's in the back of my mind is I'm not really doing something like that for atoms. I'm doing it more so for perk card packs, legendary crafting components. Perk card packs, I also will mention if Nuclear Winter is leaving in September, anybody that's able to get, let's say, rank 100 or close to it on various characters, will be able to walk away with a bunch of legendary perk coins. So now, if we're going to have that as an option, maybe perk card packs aren't as valuable to me, but legendary crafting, and again, kind of not necessarily cutting corners, but being able to collect additional resources with more means than they're implementing now sounds pretty nice. So we'll see as we get closer what those rewards actually are. Now we're on to the new vendor, Minerva. So we do have a Blue Ridge Caravan Merchant that's going to be selling plans for gold bullion. Pretty interested in this. You're going to have more ways and more places to spend your various currencies that you're already collecting in the game. This comes with 2 new events, and that goes from Monday to Wednesday, which is Minerva's Emporium, and Thursday to Monday, which is Minerva's Big Sale. So I'm going to keep an eye out for the big sale more so than anything. If these are something that's consistent. I wonder if it's like the beginning of the week you have the opportunity to show off that you bought something, or not necessarily show off, but like if they expand what you can buy for gold bullion over time, if Minerva is going to be an alternative to, let's say, completing daily ops, um, and like they're mentioning, they're saying plans that are normally only available from other gold bullion vendors or completing daily ops will be this will be your alternative source to purchase these. So now I don't know if it's going to be, again, the beginning of the week you have a daily op maybe plan that just came out. Maybe you can buy it. It's a rare drop. And then maybe at the end of the week, you'll be able to save some gold bullion. I'm really not sure. It's a lot of speculation for me. But I will say that we'll keep an eye out. There's 3 locations that you can find Minerva when she arrives for Atlas, Foundation, and Crater. At a first kind of glance, for those who are fellow Tenno, I kind of thought of Minerva as a Baroque tier. I was like kind of thinking every once in a while you might be able to see this person and then buy specific items. But again, this seems like just an alternate way to get certain plans that might be a little rarer depending on what people are accomplishing, their frequency of doing daily ops, things like that. All right, so we do have some additional design updates. And the other thing that I was very excited for was the wallet changes. We're going from 30K caps to a max of 40K caps. I get why they didn't just double it outright. I would say that'd be an interesting impact on the in-game economy. Gold bullion going from collecting 200 to 400 a day. That'll be nice too. One of my characters has way too many things to trade in, so I'm gonna have to try to get at least take advantage of that and get them out of the way, we'll say. And then the max cap that you can carry went from 5,000 to 10,000. So actually, this works for somebody like me who might want to actually save closer to 10,000 and then buy a bunch of things or buy a set before I completely learn, say, individual pieces for a set. Script. Now, script is going to impact how I do my purveyor roles, as well as how I'm approaching these modules. Depending on how many modules I can continue to collect, I imagine with the double, let's say, limit from 150 to 300 script, I'm going to probably have the 150 towards 3 modules a day, and then the other 150 going to future purveyor roles and purveyor videos. I will say that from 1,000 to 5,000 script as well is big news for me. There's a lot of times that I'll roll, let's say, 2 characters at a time, and then going from 1,000 script a week to maybe saying, all right, I'm going to save up script for the rest of the month on one character, and then do 5,000 script rolling at the end. And then again, I can see how well legendary cores in addition to legendary modules are going for doing the legendary crafting. I might feel that I need to get a lot more legendary modules. So then you're going to be limited to what you can do over time. So I'm going to try to do my best to, even if I don't spend, let's say, my script, kind of stock up and then gauge how much I'm going to need for these kind of rolls or re-rolls with legendary crafting. On to new Meat Week rewards. So we're looking at 5 over here: a pepper shaker, a grocery cart grill, fruit wreath, a plastic fruit bowl, and a decoy duck set as some of the rewards we're getting for the new Meat Week when it returns. I will say, mark your calendars. We're looking at August 17th to the 23rd. We will meet up again with Graham, and we'll have our barbecue of sorts. On to additional camp slots and special loadouts. I feel like I could maybe find the stream if I tried hard enough, where I feel like I called this, and I'm not saying this in a way that's critiquing how this was released, but I will say I'm gonna say shut up and take my money. Only for loadouts, when it comes to special loadouts and your character loadouts. What's gonna happen now is you're gonna be able to buy loadouts from the Atomic Shop. You're gonna be able to buy your camp loadouts and special loadouts. Camp loadouts will go up to a maximum of 5 that you can have, and 3 that you can buy. I also think this is pretty good for people to grind towards and collect items over time. You can only buy, let's say, 3 camp slots, but each one's going to cost you 1,000. So 3,000 for 3 different camp slots. Doesn't seem terrible if, again, you just have an excess of caps. If you're constantly going through different camp designs and don't want to keep swapping them out, or changing them, I should say, now you can swap them out. The one that I really am interested in this is the special loadouts. They're only 500 each, and you can have an additional 13 for a total of 15 special loadouts. I don't see myself running 15 builds. I don't see this as like Call of Duty and I'm going through my different characters' loadouts. I could imagine myself tonight maybe buying one for 500, and then at least this way I can have my 2 builds like I like to do that don't alternate too much, and then I can kind of see which works best in certain scenarios. And then one of my builds could be the, hey, I'm doing camp building, I'm selling stuff to a merchant, and that character might have a lot of charisma and other things going on. So at least now I can experiment with certain builds a lot more and not feel like, oh man, 2's not enough. Maybe here in a couple weeks, maybe I'll buy a 4th slot. I could see this happening, but I don't see myself saying, hey, I need 10 additional character slots, let alone 1 more camp slot. I think the 2 that I have right now is enough. I've kind of started building camp stuff again recently, so who knows? Maybe I'll just have this burst of creativity where I feel like I need a ton of these, but we'll see. Then for those that don't know, slots are account-wide. So it's not like you're just buying for one character. We do have our improvements and bug fixes. There's also a lot towards the end of this that I'm going to kind of skim through and definitely suggest checking out the Bethesda's page or the post on the website in the Fallout section, and I'll have that linked. So definitely check that out. For improvements and bug fixes, and for armor and power armor, a few that I'd like to mention. There might be an issue that people have ran into, have a server not responding error while being saved by life-saving armor. Never had that happen. I have no idea. We have backpacks. Address an issue where players could wear a backpack or use a regular armor while in power armor. Really not sure. Some of these that I'm mentioning are related to power armor more so keep that in mind. Anybody that's using something like that or going into now checking out power armor with legendary crafting, maybe this is my opportunity to actually throw on some power armor. Let's see. For fusion cores, address an issue where players may lose a fusion core when entering and exiting power armor. I think I've heard of that happen. Again, personally not ran into something like that. And then stim packs. Using a stim pack quickly while exiting power armor no longer causes movement issues. So again, anything that's going to improve somebody in these situations from running into something like that, it's going to be much better. And we do have a few arts and graphics updates here, kind of fixing specific animations for the moving target perk card. The art for the name Nuka-Cola on the camp Nuka-Cola stairs has been adjusted, and lighting with the vault fireplace has been fixed. There are a few camp and workshop fixes, challenges. Daily Ops had some stuff here adjusted as well. I do want to go down to items. This is a pretty lengthy list. There's like a few that I'm going to call out though. The emotes. We have removed the Roman candle emote from the Atomic Shop. So I really don't know what the origin of that was. I don't know if that was supposed to be for the 4th of July and that wasn't fixed in time. But the fact that people were able to get it and then pull this Roman candle from nowhere and then light this invisible spark of sorts, I don't know. Definitely interesting. Hedge fences got a couple of updates. Requirements to build it now are going to cost you wood instead of concrete. There was issues where it could float, and they also fixed the improved snapping behavior. Or, I'm sorry, they fixed the snapping behavior. Now it's better and it's improved. A few localization fixes, NPC fixes as well. Again, definitely check through some of these. Perks. So I thought this was interesting that these got fixed. We'll see if we actually notice them or not. Class Freak fixed an issue where Class Freak would not reduce negative effects as expected. And Dodgy. Dodgy now correctly consumes AP on each consecutive hit. So for me, those are two perks that I'm using and looking to see how that's going to impact my character's survivability. Not sure though. All right, and there is definitely some more categories that I'm kind of skimming through, skipping over. Of the important ones, I would say weapons. Aiming. Addressed an issue where players could become stuck in the aim position when sprinting, aiming and firing after the character enters a relaxed state. So that sounds like my issues more so in Nuclear Winter, although it's happened to me in Adventure Mode, are going to be fixed. The issue is, this is being fixed. It's a couple months before they're removing Nuclear Winter. But one of the things that really upset me when playing Nuclear Winter is going to be fixed with the irony of Nuclear Winter not being here. All right, that's as much as we're saying for that. And then we have weapons with AoE damage now take the proper amount of condition damage. So I was also understanding that a lot of those kinds of weapons are breaking faster than they should. So hopefully durability isn't as big of an issue. There's some more in this category and some updates around the in-game world. But again, the patch notes are going to be listed. So anybody that wants to specifically see some of these that I'm skimming over, definitely check them out. I just wanted to break down a lot of what's going on here, a lot of what's going to be impacting us directly, a lot of what I think is going to impact the game short term and long term. I think tonight we'll be able to check out the start of how I'm going to be going about legendary crafting, where I'm going to be saving my script and whatnot. There's a lot more space in my wallet, let's just say, for hanging on to more caps, more script, more gold, things like that. So, a lot more to grind. Not a lot changed in terms of how I'm going to approach this. I would say I'm going to keep at my normal daily grind. Maybe just say, okay, I need twice as much, whatever, unless it's items to sell to vendors. And then on top of that, I'm going to continue the purveyor videos. I'm going to continue collecting additional script for modules and then turn that into legendary crafting. I'm looking forward to Minerva, which, I don't know, again, I might call Minerva Baroque Tier V2, or maybe start using that whole trade interface more so instead of running daily ops looking for a specific role. We'll see. There's a lot of speculation I have on my end, but very excited that patch 28 was a lot of buffs, a lot of quality of life. And if I'm going to say the only thing that got nerfed was Berserkers, I think we're all walking away pretty good on this one.